Welcome everyone to this session today. If you can please put your name or farm business in the chat and your location too. We'd love to hear where everyone is from today around the state or outside of the state borders. So yeah, again, if you're just entering, if you want to leave your farm name or your name and your location, your county, or your state in the chat, we love to hear where folks are from. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. You are viewing the OAK webinar, Small Spaces, Whole Ecosystems. And this webinar is about conservation on small scale in urban farms. We're glad that all of you are here to join us today. This is an Organic Association of Kentucky webinar, and my name is Mad Marshall. I'll be the facilitator for this webinar today. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before we dig into the content. Please keep your microphone muted. Thank you. And please feel free to have your video on. We love to see faces. And of course, you can have it off as well. Any comments or questions that come up today, please put them into the chat. We will be polling from questions from the chat for a Q&A session towards the end of the hour. So please put any of your inquiries or comments into the chat box for us. And again, if you're just coming in, please let us know where you're from and your farm name. We love to know who's hanging out with us today. If you're having any technical assistance issues, you can reach out to Jenny Howard Owen. She's also on this call. She's our OAK Farm Education Program Manager. So you can direct chat Jenny Howard Owen if you need any technical assistance. And again, any comments or questions today can be put into the chat. I want to start out by just telling you a little bit about the Organic Association of Kentucky. You can check us out at oak-ky.org, oak-ky.org. We have a plethora of programs and technical assistance, and we're also working to advance the organic market in Kentucky, as well as organic and regenerative agriculture. We have all kinds of educational events like field days and the webinar like today, and of course the annual conference that happens every January. I'll mention it again later. So you can learn more about us again at oak-ky. And yeah, we're excited you all are joining us today. This is a funded event today through a cooperative agreement with the NRCS, the Natural Resources Conservation Service. We do have a special NRCS guest that you will meet here momentarily, but this event specifically is through a cooperative partnership with them, and we're just really glad to keep that connection going with them and cross all of those important and relevant links that organic and natural resources are all about. This program in particular is an entire conservation program through OAK. Through this program, we have one-on-one farmer support. We have conservation resources like this, like an online webpage at our OAK website. We have field days that are specifically relating to conservation practices. We have virtual conservation chats. And this entire program with conservation does prioritize historically underserved farmers. So folks who have not regularly accessed NRCS assistance before. And then also it highlights climate smart practices, which are special practices that the USDA has identified to help support and grow climate smart agriculture. Some common language for us today, just so that we're all on the same page. Many of you may be familiar with NRCS practice standards. These are conservation measures that have specialized regulations and specifications as outlined by the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And so in order to identify these today, you might see this little white box with the orange text. It is a practice standard or a conservation practice that is implemented on farms. So our agenda, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about NRCS and how it relates to small farms and urban agriculture. I'm going to introduce a couple of guests today, and then who are going to talk about their experience with conservation, farming, and an urban conservationist with NRCS will join us today to talk about that. I'll go a little bit deeper into a couple of NRCS programs and how their technical assistance can help bolster small acreage, small farms, and then we'll have a Q&A as well. So when we talk about the Natural Resource Conservation Service, really their main objective is to preserve and uplift our natural resource concerns. So that those can look like many different things through crop and livestock and forestry practices. All of this work mimics kind of what our natural systems of the surrounding ecosystem are already doing. So really just helping to bolster those natural systems. This is why we think organics is such a great fit too. Organic-minded farmers really strive to do that, whether they're certified or not. This image here shows you where our guest farmer is farming, and it's of course a very urban spot. There are a lot of urban gardens shown in this picture. It's the west end of Louisville. And then of course you can see the Ohio River there and Indiana on the other side. So just kind of trying to give a scope of really how this entire ecosystem is tied in together, how everything that's happening in the West End and in those gardens is of course directly impacting the Ohio River and how large the Ohio River watershed is and how that's affecting the Mississippi and the Gulf and so on and so forth. So really when we're talking about these conservation measures, the little pieces really do add up. And thankfully NRCS again is doing some work to help us really get there. So how does NRCS serve small farms and urban farms? NRCS historically has served conventional farms and very large scale farms. As the landscape of farming has shifted over the last few decades, that has changed dramatically as they have kind of answered those calls and begun to change their programs to deliver more assistance to folks that have less than 10 acres, because 10 acres was a minimum acreage for a long time, to folks who conventionally weren't able to reach their offices or their programs. They've increased training in order to do that and have increased payment rates within some of their financial programs to give an even higher payment to someone with less acreage and less land. So with that, I would like to introduce Velvet Welch and Nathan Lind. Velvet Welch is a farmer in Louisville, Kentucky, in Jefferson County, and Nathan Lind is the NRCS Urban Conservationist in Jefferson County. And I will let Velvet take it away and tell us a little bit about her farm. Thanks, Velvet.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Can I be heard, Madeline?
Yep, loud and clear.
Thank you all for coming and allowing me to share my story. It is a passion that just fulfills my life. As she said, I was born and raised in the West End of Louisville, just maybe about 50 feet from where my garden is. So it is my beloved community. Although I live in another community, that's where I spend most of my life in my daytime. My husband, he fusses at me from not being at home so much because I'm always at the garden. But the garden started out as part of Mayor Fisher's, the previous Mayor Fisher's um, Blight to Plenty program, to where he wanted every green space to be every blighted property to be a green space. And so my brother owned the building where my garden is sitting. He had a blighted property, and I asked him, could I tear it down and make the garden there? And so I have a 3,900 square foot space that I grow in now. I have a program. My mission is to teach the youth in that community, which are at-risk youth, how to take and grow food and to take and understand the symbiotic relationship between them and nature. And so I have children that's between the ages of 16 to 24 that I pay to learn how to garden and to stay out of trouble and to be in a safe space. And the garden started in 2022, the end of 2022. And we have been farming now of going into our third season. So I'm excited about it. But the food that we grow is all organic. We don't put any pesticides or anything on our garden. And the children, they came in and they built everything from the beds to the trellises, everything that's in the garden. The children put it up. And so I also had I gotta give credit to Habitat for Humanity. They were one of my biggest supporters as well. They put that fence up that you see along with the troubled children, for lack of a better term, the children at Liberty. They're the ones who put that fence up, and it is a gorgeous fence. So when we started out, the first thing that I was doing, since it is a blighted property, was to take in a check on the soil health. And that's how I end up meeting the Soil and Conservation Office and Nathan at the NCRS, is to find out how the soil was. And so they came down and tested the soil and told me that everything was good, because down in the West End, it's a food desert, as you know, and a red line district. So it's nothing down there but just a lot of deserted property that hasn't been cared for. And so when he tested the soil, I was grateful that there was nothing wrong with the soil, it was all good. So what we ended up doing was doing raised beds. I have 20 raised beds on that property. And each one of them were built by the youth there. And so what I did this year was to allow the youth to have responsibility of the space. They each got their own garden bed, and I helped them to learn how to do designs in the bed and everything, so that they could take ownership and understand really the relationship that they have with the earth, and enjoy it. And so that's what we're doing now. And so the soil, what we were trying to do was do what is called the Back to Eden garden growing method. Not sure if you all know about it. It's where you take wood chips and you put it all over the garden. And so I was like, okay, when I moved into that space, we didn't have any water, because when they tore up the property, they tore up all of the water lines. And so I had no water source to my garden. So I was like, okay, they say wood chips will help to keep the water, on the land. So I put wood chips out on the garden. That was kind of like not knowing how to do it. Everything was yellow. Nothing came out that year. And I was just like, oh my God, what's going on? How come nothing is growing in my garden? And so then that's when Nathan and
Paul,
what's his name?
Paul
Paul.
Warntrager.
Paul, yes, yes, yes. Forgive me, Paul. Came and was like, okay, I think we can help you out with this situation that you have with not having no water on your land, and not being able to get the crops to growing. So they helped me to take and understand about being able to get cover crop and be able to take and apply for the equipment system, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. But they also helped me to get this high tunnel, which is a blessing this year. The high tunnel is the cover crop that I planted it this year. It's already about 2 feet tall already, and I just put it in the 1st of November. So it is growing so well. But I'm grateful for Grow Appalachia. They came and they put the high tunnel up along with my youth. And it's a beautiful high tunnel. I can't wait to take and grow in it in March. So once we got the wood chips and everything balanced with the cover crop, we were able to take and see the benefits of some beautiful vegetables this year. I have on my land two apple trees, 2 pear trees, 2 fig trees. I don't know why everything is two. I guess because God sent it out 2 by 2. So I got 2 of everything. 2 fig trees. I have one persimmon tree, and we grow everything from asparagus to zucchini in our garden, and I'm excited.
Velvet, this is great. I love hearing about just the vast array of plants and crops and conservation that you have going on in such a small space. Nathan, I'm curious, when you first came to the garden, what conservation or what natural resource issues did you identify, and what conservation practices did you think would be appropriate for a garden that's so small, so dense in such an urban area?
Well, one thing that I saw immediately was, and then just talking to Velvet, was the need for season extension on her place. She was concerned about, crops dying out when the first frost, and really one of her goals was to continue the garden into the fall. So, season extension, we can help with that on with our seasonal high tunnels. So that was one goal of Velvet's that I thought we could really take care of quickly. Layer of wood chips I saw immediately too. That suppresses weeds and holds in water. So that was good for her to go ahead and take that initiative and put that down. Yeah, erosion was in check. There really wasn't any erosion problems on her land. So, erosion practices really wasn't needed. The heavy metal concerns, like she talked about with urban landscapes, and especially where, like she said, an old building site was there. So that really had me thinking heavy metal concerns. So with the Jefferson County SWCD, we have possibility to send 2 soil samples off for to see if they come back with heavy metal concerns, and luckily hers didn't. Um, Building up soil was also a priority, so that automatically thinks regenerative ag with soil health, cover crops, and no-till, which Velvet was already practicing no-till, so she already had 1 or 2 already in place. She keeps in mind nutrient and pest management with the garden as well. And I just like that it's an educational opportunity. She gives that back to the community there. So resource concerns identified was the need for season extension and water roof runoff. She's interested in getting that addressed, micro irrigation as well. And we offered cover crops and a high tunnel. The high tunnel was actually offered through the SWCD program. Just, always remind people to take advantage of local programs as well, and talk to Extension or SWCD and see if there is funding. There might be. It could work out like Velvet. It worked out in her advantage to go ahead and do it in the county program, then wait around for equip. So we got that through. And another thing for small scale that really makes sense to me is to look into CSP. All our NRCS our programs are competitive. So, you might have to wait a year or 2 for funding, but I always tell people it's free to apply and might as well get your name in the hat. And then with such small acreages on some of our urban landscapes and farms, CSP really makes a difference, because right now the minimum payment is $4,000 a year. So it really makes sense in my eyes for people to sign up for that.
Thanks, Nathan. And we'll talk more about these programs and the logistics of them here in a minute. And I do want to note that this slide and a lot of documents will be given to all of you after this event today. So you'll have this whole slide deck with a bunch of links, more links than you could ever care to click on, but all of this information will be followed up in your inbox. Real quick, if we could hear about the impact that these conservation practices have had so far on the farm, and yeah, the community impact too.
So if you can look at those sweet potatoes right there, the impact that it has had is turned my crop from yellow to being plentiful. I'm just so grateful because now we do have a water source through the rain catchment. I have 3 rain barrels, and there's been a good rainy weather this year. But there's no, as Nathan said, there's no soil runoff that's coming, and being able to have that CSP income coming, because I have not been able to get any grants or anything. It's helping me to sustain my garden through being able to get other soil and different things that I need to help it to continue to flourish. So and also that's my high tunnel right there where my crops was just starting out. And so it is just going to be a wonderful blessing to extend the food to the community. And so what we have is a fair share. We have the community come and take their fair share and leave some for the neighbors. So starting early in March, we'll be able to now start growing food.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for sharing, and I'm sure we'll get to hear from you again in a moment here. I just want to remind folks, if you have any comments or questions, you can put them in the chat. We will have a whole 10 minutes, hopefully, for a Q&A session. So if you want to get your questions answered about Velvet's garden, about how she got into these programs, maybe after hearing more about it, please enter those into the chat now. So I do want to take a moment to identify and uplift that the NRCS has technical assistance available for free, even outside of the financial assistance programs. So I've listed some practice standards that the NRCS has a plethora of information around regarding designs for your farm, specifications on infrastructure, building materials, and designs. You can take any of these topics to your NRCS office and get more information. You can also ask an agent or a field staff to come out to your farm, and they should be able to advise you on any of these topics or dig up the information for you. Again, it's for free, and it's just an incredible resource that is separate from the financial and works with the financial programs as well. So any of these topics, of course, native pollinators is a really common one. Cover crops is probably the most common, but even like how do you balance the livestock that you want on your small acreage with the amount of forage or space that you have or need to plant? Pruning, silvopasture, runoff management, again, just a lot of information there that your field staff are willing to get to you. I will start with the financial assistance programs by talking about the Environmental Quality Incentive Program, or EQIP. I'm sure that many of you know about this program, maybe even some of you have had an EQIP contract before. I just wanted to highlight why EQIP is a good fit for small acreage and urban farms still. There is no acreage minimum. There are no income requirements. You can be the property owner or you can be leasing and still have an EQIP contract. It works in community gardens as well. So maybe when there isn't just one property owner or an LLC owns the property, etc. Generally, the EQIP deadline every year is in October in Kentucky, or early November. Nathan, would you like to say anything about EQIP?
Yeah, for that, it varies on the deadline. Some years it's in January, some years December, but usually that fall, winter time of that year, you can expect a cutoff date sometime in there. And then
Awesome.
if you don't own the ground, it's called control land that we look for, where the landowner has to sign off on that and they agree to you carrying the EQIP contract on their land.
Great. Thanks for that clarification. And that deadline is usually designated a couple of months out or so folks have time to get all of their paperwork together. And
Yeah, like this year, we had October 18th as the deadline for applications for EQIP, and then they need to get in the FSA and get their eligibility done by November 22nd, to give you an example of that. And then from there, we take the eligible applications after that, and we will rank them and then see who's approved based on resource concerns.
Great. And just wanted to highlight some of the conservation practices that specifically work really well in small spaces. So here's a list here. You can see that micro irrigation is really relevant for small farms in tunnels or outside of tunnels. And again, NRCS can design that system, and then there is cost share available through EQIP. The practice standards that you see here that have the asterisk actually have an increased payment rate through EQIP for small acreage. So NRCS will pay more for a less than an acre of cover crops than they would in relation to 5 acres of cover crops or 10 acres of cover crops. So there are higher payment rates for a lot of these smaller spaces. And then the plus sign that you see next to them is just they're a designated climate smart practice. So like in this one of my favorite, I think like relevant and awesome cost share practice standards through EQIP is tree and shrub establishment, like you see in this photo. So EQIP can help pay per tree to install new plantings, and that can be in a relatively small area. So even like an area that's 8 by 8 or 8 by 10, you can still get $20 a tree. And if you have a tree that's, bare root or, a 3-year-old tree, that can add up if you have a few of them. And again, a lot of these conservation activities and these practice standards are really meant to be working together with each other. So you can apply for multiple of these standards on one application. And kind of the more natural resource concerns that you're addressing through different practice standards will make for a more competitive application too. I'll take a moment while we're here talking about EQIP to introduce the Field Office Technical Guide to you. This is a really valuable resource that the NRCS puts out, and each state has their own guide. So if you visit it, again, this will all be sent out with active links on it too, so you'll be able to get right in there. But if you visit it and you select practice standards, then you can just look at the list of available practice standards that are relevant for Kentucky that have financial assistance behind them.
And it's good to go in for just general information to see what we do offer. And you can pull up the job sheets usually, or any general designs. If it is an engineering practice, we'll probably have to come out later and get that designed and engineered for you. But it's a great way to go for just general information.
The the cost share payment through EQIP varies from practice to practice. So I wanted to highlight sort of what it can look like across different practices. So these are all practice standards that have the increased payment rate for small acreage. And I've sort of just parsed them out here so you can see what those payments look like. And these numbers are from this year, so they do change a little bit from year to year. So don't hold us to this in 2025 or 2026, but generally they'll be pretty much the same. And that's sort of what some payments for these different practices could look like. There are
So
also, yeah, please.
from there, so if you signed up for 0.5 acres, you just times it by 0.5. If you sign up for 1 acre or less, you don't get 406 like cover crops, $406 an acre. Just because you sign up 1 acre or less doesn't mean you get the 406. So if it's 0.1 acre, then you times it by 0.1, and that would be the cost share. Some people get that confused. They're like, well, I thought I was going to get $406. No, it's times by what you sign up.
Important distinction. Thank you. There are also increased payment rates for historically underserved farmers. And these different qualifications that you see here are what the NRCS identifies as historically underserved. Also, historically underserved farmers can be eligible to receive 50% of their cost share up front, if needed. And again, these are the payment rates for the same practices that we saw before, but just with that increased payment for the historically underserved farmers and growers. Sort of shifting gears to a different financial assistance program is the Conservation Stewardship Program, and you will hear it referred to as CSP. The Conservation Stewardship Program is a program for farmers that want to grow on their existing conservation efforts. So whether or not they've been practicing conservation methods through an equip contract or just on their own, CSP can help you build on the conservation efforts that you're already doing. There again is no acreage minimum, and there are practices that you're dealing with in equip, and then the enhancements is the language that the Conservation Stewardship Program uses around additional ways of practicing conservation methods that help to bolster your whole farm. The Conservation Stewardship Program is a 3 to 5 year contract, and the minimum annual payout. So you have an annual payout for 3 to 5 years, and the minimum amount is $4,000, and that was just raised in this last year. So although we do expect it to be a competitive program moving forward with such a high payment rate, there is also a lot of funding for this program moving forward right now, and it's a really great time to try to submit an application and kind of see what comes back and what happens or where you can go from there. And the applications for this program are going to be due around early March. Nathan, is that what you're kind of gleaning?
Yeah, that's usually about when we have our cutoff for CSP. It might be a little earlier this year since we pushed equip earlier, but that's a good time frame. And they are 5 year contracts though.
Great.
It's 5. It locks you in for 5 years.
Awesome. So this is really if you want to take a piece of your land, even a small area, again, no acreage minimum, and sign it up for this extended conservation practice for 5 years, to allow you to either build soil or create habitat, reduce erosion, etc. There are, again, different enhancements used to achieve different things. I wonder, Nathan, if you would kind of speak to, or Velvet, I know that you are currently have an application in for CSP. Can you, either of you, speak to that?
They'll go ahead if you want to, and then I can dive into if you want to give your thoughts on CSP and how it's helped you.
Yeah, excuse me. And it was a really simple process. I think the main thing, you do have to have a form number in order to take and qualify for, I think, for a lot of programs, and Nathan can clarify that. But the application process was pretty simple. But as he said, just got to do a qualification part with the FSA to make sure that everything is covered by it. But it's a really simple process.
Yeah, there's not
We
much
love to
to
hear
that.
that.
There's not too much to the application. It's pretty simple. The background info required by a farm service agency, our partner, for they handle the eligibility side of our applications. That might be a little bit painful to get all those forms in and get it all ready for eligibility, but it's not too bad. It will take some time and work with FSA though. Uh, But and like I said, it locks you in for 5 years, and the minimum's 4,000. Practices can be, you can sign up for one or many. Uh, I try to keep them pretty simple so people don't get confused. But you can sign up for a lot of practices and enhancements, but I try to steer clear of that and keep them pretty simple so people can not get confused. There was a question that says, can you have equip and CSP at the same time? You can, but then, I've seen a lot of people get confused when they get too many things going. I think one program at a time is makes sense to me, but you can dive into both of them at the same time, but it might bring some confusion later on what you actually have signed up. Is it in this contract, or is it in equip versus CSP? Is it which contracts it covered in? I've seen a lot of people get confused on that. So I think best to have, you don't have to, but it's best to have one program at a time.
Great. Thanks for that, Nathan. I wanted to show here too, I believe this is the enhancement that Velvet's using on her farm right now for the cover crop. So again, all of this will be linked, but you will be able to see a list of enhancements on the NRCS website. And you'll see there are a few that relate to cover crops. There are a few that relate to wildlife and so on and so forth. And it's really about finding the enhancement that works best for you on your scale, on your farm. And again, that's going to be a conversation with your field staff. And also I'm a resource for that as well. When talking through that kind of thing with field staff and moving forward into contracts like these.
So another clarification on that. So if you've been through equip, usually CSP is your second step after an equip contract. So equip, we only have practices. So CSP is to enhance the farm through enhancements. So you look to enhance those practices that you've already completed in equip, if that makes sense for everybody. So
Yeah.
that's why we term them enhancements, because you're enhancing the practices on your farm that you're currently applying.
And again, to be clear, Nathan, one wouldn't have to go through equip to practice those practices, although you could.
No, you could be doing them on your own, and that field assessment should show that. Like if I go out and see that you're already doing a 10-way mix on cover crop, it's like, wow, we can enhance that through CSP then. Yeah, you don't have to do the practices through equip, but we should be able to go out and see that effort. Like forestry, for example, if we walk out and you have 10 acres of forestry and you say, I've been doing brush management, So I better see dead invasives out on the property, to back it up. And then from there, we could sign you up for brush management enhancement to enhance your brush management practice.
Great.
Like one of the enhancements that they helped me with that being a food desert down there, my pollination was down. And so that was one of the things that he told me that I could get was a pollination garden.
Yeah, and Nathan, was that through Equip?
Yes. Yeah, that was
So
going to be through Equip.
cool.
Do you
So
mind if I tell you our next steps on yours, Velvet?
No, not at all. Please do.
Okay. So Velvet applied for roof runoff uh, this year and pollinator plot. So we could do a small pollinator plot on her garden. She's already done the high tunnel. She's doing the cover crop through CSP. So she's got some things already taken care of, but the second round of what she wants to do improving is the roof runoff, the pollinator plot, and the micro irrigation in her high tunnel. So those are all practices that we can do for the second phase on her property.
great, thank you. And not to confuse it more, we're keeping all of you on your toes, I know, switching back and forth between these two really significant and tried and true financial programs. But just a note to kind of wrap up the conservation stewardship program here. This is another enhancement, again, through the conservation stewardship program, specifically for a conservation cover for pollinators. So this might be the enhancement that you would look at if you are looking to enhance your pollinator stand. And there are, again, some technical documents that go into how you establish a native cover space for wildlife. With all of these enhancements as well, a lot of them or all of them, Nathan, have supplemental sheets for Kentucky. So, so there's a national list of enhancements and then a Kentucky sheet that goes with each of those enhancements. And you don't need to know about that up front when you're applying, but that will be something that your field staff will go through with you. Just to wrap up the financial assistance programs, the application is the same for each program. This is an image of it here. Again, it's pretty simple. You don't have to have an entire conservation plan to apply. Addressing multiple resource concerns makes for a competitive application. The ranking and funding comes from many different pools and happens at the state level and is really complex. So if you don't get an approved application the first time, we encourage you to continue to apply. You can apply for multiple years in a row, whether or not you receive assistance. So even if you do get approved, you can continue to apply for programs again. All of the NRCS financial programs are taxable income. So just a note as you're planning for your garden or your farm, that's something to plan in. And then just quickly, I wanted to share the first kind of, if this is completely new to you today and you need a simple place to start, in this slide deck, we do have the first 3 steps for obtaining a farm service number, reaching out to the NRCS office, and really honing in on the resource concerns on your land and your specific farm goals. If any of this is new or overwhelming information to you, you can schedule a free 30-minute meeting with me. Again, my name is Mad if you came in late. This is my contact information. You can find more about programs like this on the Oak Conservation webpage. This will be a live link when you get the PDF to schedule a meeting with me, or just reach out and we can schedule it in the meantime. And today we would love to hear your feedback from this program. OAK is a member-based organization, and we really rely on the feedback from our network and our community to build our programs, big and small. And even this entire program that's brought to you today is out of feedback that we've received from farmers and growers. A lot of beginning farmers needing more assistance with where to start, a lot of urban farmers needing to hear how NRCS could benefit them. So that's what this event is a product of today. And Jenny is putting the evaluation for today in the chat. So if you can go ahead and click on that, open it up. You can fill it out after the program, after we've wrapped up today, or during the Q&A session, which we are about to get into. Great. So yeah, I want to bring Velvet and Nathan back into the mix here. And if you're local to Jefferson County, you can reach out to Nathan. And of course, Velvet too, if you want to know more about how she did something that wasn't explained today. She's made her contact information available for all of you. So I'm gonna get to some of the Q&A questions. All right. So we have a question regarding Velvet's space. Were there any invasive plants that needed to be eradicated? Velvet.
No, not really, because like I said, when we tore down the blighted property, they tore down everything. So when I went to the ground, it was just straight clear soil. I think the only thing invasive that might grow there is there's a clover weed. Oh my God, and don't mention that grass that has roots that grows forever.
Uh, Bermuda grass.
Beautiful grass, yeah. That's the only
It's
invasive thing that I have on there.
Yeah, Nathan, would you speak to what invasive management would look like in a small urban space if someone needed or wanted to do that?
Yeah, we got a practice called brush management that we can sign people up for invasive removal. Um, Usually, uh, before you get into organic production, you really need to have to take care of your invasives. Um, you can hand pull them and agree to that to take care of the invasives, but without herbicide, it's going to be hard. I mean, it's just that's the way it is. So keep that in mind when you're dealing with invasives. But we do have some small scale scenarios for invasive removal on farms. Velvets, Bermuda grass really isn't an invasive per se, but in a garden area, it really can be because um, it just grows everywhere in rhizomes and stolons, and it just grows everywhere, and it's hard to manage. So, really, with hers, it's some hand pulling. That's what you do in the velvet. I don't want to out,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that's
basically just put wood chips, heavy wood chips on top of it.
yeah. Keep fighting it with wood chips, but they'll probably grow through, and you'll need some hand removal. It's just one of those species that's hard to eradicate. Um, I've read in college that the roots go down 10 foot in the soil. So if you got 10 foot of soil, chances are you got Bermuda roots that far down if you have Bermuda grass. So it's really hard to get rid of. But we do have scenarios in Equip if that's one of the things that you'd like to sign up for. We do have that capability. And
Great,
CSP. I say Equip, but and CSP as well.
great. Looks like we have another question. What would be a good resource? What would a good resource be to set up the business legal structure to begin applying for grants? So as far as the Natural Resources Conservation Service financial programs go, you would need that farm serial number, which will be, more information will be in the slides. You can make a meeting with me if you need assistance getting that. I hope that answers the question. Please feel free to drop another question into the chat if you need more clarification. We have
With
another.
eligibility too,
Mhm.
just work with FSA when you make your farm number. Go ahead and get the other stuff out of the way, like the 902 is the setup of the farm. So if you can go ahead and give that information to them. AGI, adjusted gross income, would be another form they need. That's saying that you make less than $950,000 a year. Most people don't have that trouble. And you can sign up as an individual, not for profits. I've worked with churches in Louisville,
So,
organizations. I mean, you can apply as LLCs, individuals. I've had a little bit of everything. So you're welcome to set up your business with FSA as well and sign up under that.
So Mary, I hope that answers your question there. I think as long as the nonprofit owns the property that you need the FSN for, and has the legal documents for that.
Or control land. They can get control land from that landowner as well and
Yes,
sign
great,
up.
great.
Yeah,
Another,
because I'm a nonprofit.
oh yeah, great. And that worked for you, good. Another question, how secure is the annual funding of these programs by state, federal, or private funds? Nathan, are you able to speak to that at all?
Yeah, it's farm bill driven. So we've got money allotted in the farm bill for EQIP, CSP, all our NRCS programs. So it's farm bill driven. So, I mean, I've worked through 3 farm bills now with NRCS and none of it's ever gone away. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I think it's going to be there for a long time.
Okay, another question. Let's see. Would a CSP payout, an equip payout, be considered taxable income? And if so, would this income be considered farm income? So yes, it is taxable income. And I think it would be considered farm income if it was registered through your farm business.
Yeah, you'll receive a tax form on EQIP or CSP. You would receive that. It is taxable income. But you're farming, you have expenses. So, I mean, I farm too, so I know how it goes. You're always going to have expenses on a farm. So you kind of balance that out with cost share and expenses from my personal experience.
Yeah, and again, farmers and growers should be able to deduct 25% of their gross farm income for conservation expenses. And then through mainly EQIP, if a payout is assigned directly to a contractor, the grower, the farmer, is still assuming that tax burden. Okay, looks like the next question is for Velvet. What has been the most challenging thing you've had to work through in meeting your personal goals to enrich your community? the most challenging thing you've had to work through in meeting your personal goals to enrich your community?
I think trying to get the community to come out and volunteer more. I think because it's gated, for one thing, that makes people think that it's a personal or property. And so with me having 17 to 20 youth there, a lot of time I am the only adult there. And so trying to get, adult supervision and volunteers to help out is one of the main things that I have that causes problems for me personally. I hope I answered that.
Great. That's great, Velvet. Thanks for sharing. Last chance for any questions to be put into the chat. Really appreciate, yeah, Nathan, you have
I see
something?
one on legal structure,
Yeah,
whether you're LLC or 501, you have to set that up through FSA. So that would be the 902 paperwork that you set that up with. So it is setting up your property with a farm number and tract number, but they will need the 902 form and the AGI form.
great. Thanks,
And the people
Nathan.
at FSA they were so understanding. I didn't have any problem because I'm a 501c3 nonprofit. And I mean, I'm just so grateful to the NSRC, OAK, FSA, everybody, because me coming in, just learning how to do this thing, I was just blind. I have no idea, and not getting any grants. I didn't know which way to go, but any organization that I just mentioned, they came and they helped me out and just helped me with the paperwork, sent it back and forth. It was really simple and really kind people.
Well, Velvet and Nathan, we are beyond grateful for your time today. Thanks so much for sharing your expertise with us. As I've said before, I love hearing both of you talk about what you do, and really grateful to have you all in the room today.
Thank you.
Again, one more
Thank you.
shout out. Yeah, thanks. If you can share your feedback with us today, we would really appreciate it. Again, we will put that evaluation link in the chat, and you can click on it now and fill it out. I want to remind everyone that OAK has a fabulous annual organic conference every January. This year it will be, again, as it was last year, at the KSU Research Farm in Frankfurt. It falls on January 23rd through 25th. The agenda just rolled out very recently, and there's a lot of great stuff happening. So we hope you check it out. You can go to this link to learn more. And please just keep in touch with OAK in general. So glad that all of you were able to attend today. We do have membership available. We have equity membership available for folks that are limited resource and may not be able to afford membership. And membership gives you reduced fees to all of our educational programs, including conference and other member perks. And sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already. We have a print newsletter coming just in a few weeks here, and you can also follow us on social media. So thanks again
Hey, Matt.
for everyone joining. Yeah.
Thank
One
you.
last thought, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
On your farms, don't think I'm too small to get in there and talk to NRCS, because you're not. So I see it time and time again where we can make a difference now in our small farm urban landscape. So get in and talk to NRCS. So CSP is a good way to get some farm income and get some help with these conservation practices on limited acres. So just the last point there.
Yeah, last point and best point. That's really vital. Thanks for sending it home. And we hope this was an informative session for you all today. And please reach out. Thanks so much.